ladies and gentlemen. It's Monday night. That means it's time for another edition of Circle Track Chatter presented by Sun Parlor Trailers. My name is Craig Smolders, joined as always by Rob Young. Rob, how are you?
Really good, Craig. Hope you enjoyed your weekend. And here we are with a great hero of mine and a hero of a lot of the fans out there, Kirk Hooker. So we've got an hour full of all kinds of stories from Kirk. So go ahead, Craig, take it on.
Yep, we're going to jump right into it here. Kirk, welcome to the show. Thank you very much for joining us. I know you got a lot of fans out there. I know I'm a personal fan of yours, and I had a lot of fun watching you at the track. So first thing I'd like to know is, how did you actually get started racing?
Well, I started, first of all, my brother raced a long time ago, and I always helped him, but then I got involved with this guy, and everybody knows who this guy is. That's Hollywood Hoekstra. He's probably one of my biggest friends and heroes, and I was sitting there one night having a beer at his house, and I asked when I ever get to drive the 30, when can I get to drive one of these cars? And Eugene walked over and he made that 6 into an 8, and that's how 38 come about. And this all because of Eugene.
So that answers the question of where the 38 came from. So now you all know. So go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, that's good, because when we had Jake on, we asked him where the 38 came from, and he said, I don't know, it's my dad's number. So now we know where actually.
Yeah, it actually come from Eugene. Yeah.
All right. So how was that rookie season for you? Were you pretty comfortable in the car, or was it kind of just holding on and hoping for the best?
Yeah, it was a terrible season, but you learn a lot, you break a lot. It wasn't a lot of money back then, like you could go to the races for like $100 back then. Now it's thousands. Like, that's the way it is. There's my first car there. It's sponsored by Barnier Building System, and actually his son, Steve Barnier, owns Vertec, and he still sponsors me.
Wow,
and there's actually George Valoranda, and that's Sherry's back in this picture somewhere, but it's a pretty cool picture. That's a long time ago.
Yep, so Kirk started racing when he was 17 years old. He's 57 years old now. You wouldn't know that to look at him. He probably looks like he's like 47, right?
67 maybe.
So he's 40 years of racing. Before we get into all of the racing experience he had, Craig, ask him about what he does for a living.
All right, Kirk, what do you do for a living?
I work at a medical marijuana company in the maintenance department. I have a very good job. I enjoy it. It's just down the road, and it's fun.
You don't get into any sampling or anything like that?
No. It's funny because I ran the golf course for years. We used to kill weeds. Now I grow weeds.
Yeah. So Kirk's more of a beer drinker than he is a marijuana type of guy. But that's what he does for a living now. We're in Kirk's new shop here in Unga. Kirk has been the mayor of Unga for as long as Unga has been there. But that's another story. Go ahead, Craig.
All right, so tell us a little bit about as you're getting into the your racing career, and how it's going, and as you're getting more comfortable in the car.
Well, like I said, I've been racing for a long time. I've met a lot of good people. Claire Guyot was a big supporter of mine back in the day. They call him Zebby, because Zebby used to help Eugene, and we were all buddies. And that's actually, there's a picture of that actually right there. That's at Kawartha Downs. That's a summer sizzler race. That was a brand new McCall car, and we won the race that night, and it paid $4,000. That's a pretty cool picture there.
So what Kirk? Most of us know Kirk from the dirt, but a big part of Kirk's winning and his popularity across the province of Ontario and down in New Smyrna was in an asphalt car. Back in the day, I'm talking back in 2004, 2005, Kirk ran in the All-Star Series. So, Kirk, tell us about that series. You won in a lot of places.
Yeah, we've won basically in every track in Ontario, asphalt, other than Cayuga. I never won at Cayuga or Jacasa now. Yeah. But I had a real good asphalt program. I drove for Mike McCall. Junior Hanley helped me. My brother Randy and his wife Debbie owned the car. This is actually at Sauble Speedway. That's Joe Chisholm's place. I always enjoyed going there. We had a real good rate. In 2004, I got a call from Mike McCall to drive an all-star car. I had no clue what I was getting into, and I won the Rookie of the Year and won 2 features that year in Peterborough. And then the next year we won the All-Star Championship, and it paid $10,000 to win.
Yeah, we're looking around this shop, and sorry we can't show you. There's a couple hundred pictures around here. Most of them holding checker flags, so I have no idea how many races Kirk has won, but it's an awful lot. Dirt, asphalt, it doesn't matter what it was. But as he says, I mean, there's one up here for $10,000. I'm looking at another one over there, the Summer Sizzler for $4,000. These are big money races. And of course, you know, his son Jake is probably one of the best natural drivers that I've ever seen, and I'm sure that you guys can all agree with me on that. Kirk is going to tell us a little bit about when he decided that he was done with his with racing, and he was going to turn the torch over to Jake. It had to do with a couple pictures he pointed out here. So, Kirk, tell us about the.
Well, this is young Jake and Taylor May. They've always went to the races with me. It's pretty emotional because I've always been a family guy. You know,
Yeah.
It's all about family, and we were racing, and Jake started racing go-karts. There was a track in Windsor, it was called Fog. Kevin McKenzie owned it, and there's a picture that he's got the checker flag, and that was basically the beginning of his racing career and the end of mine. And I was racing one place, and Diane had Jake someplace, and my mind wasn't where it should have been that night. And that's when there it is. That's the beginning of the end.
That's the picture right there. So.
Yeah. So this cart here was that's a funny story. We bought that cart from Kevin McKenzie, and it was number 4. And it was a beautiful cart. It had flames. It was so cool. And Jake told me, he said, "Dad, I'm going to drive the number 4 cart." And I said, "No, you're not driving the 4 cart. If you're driving for me, you're going to be driving the 38 cart." And he told me he was driving the 4 cart. So he walked into that house and he told his mother that he was driving the 4 cart. And when he come back out of that conversation, he was driving the 38 cart. So I don't know what she said to him or what was said there, but he's driving the 38. So
Yeah.
That's a pretty cool story there.
Even yet, the 38 is both Kirk and Jake's number, but obviously, you know, Jake drives the 1A now for Brad Authier. Tell us a story. A lot of you guys, Brad Authier, and I'd written some things down here. Don Hendricks, Bill Profota, Eugene Huckstra. I remember all of you guys back then. Like, there was a group of really good dirt racers, and you've stuck together. And those friendships have lasted just all these 40 years.
Yeah.
For instance, with Brad now having Jake drive for him. So tell us a little bit about the old days. And
Well, Brad Authier and myself were not friends. There was no. He tore up a lot of my stuff, and I tore up a lot of his stuff. And Brad and I were fierce competitors, and everybody knew it. There was the Brad Authier section, and there was the hooker hater section, and then there was a hooker section. So, like, it's unbelievable that my son drives for Brad Authier now. And Brad Authier, I got to know him over the past probably 5 or 6 years, and we've become real good friends. And we laugh about things like, you know, about trophies and blah, blah, blah. But, you know, he treats my son with utmost respect. Like, I call Brad his other dad, you know, so I can't say enough for Brad Authier and Nikki for giving Jake the opportunity to drive for them. Yeah. And he's doing a good job, you know, and he's a fierce competitor. He's a young Brad Authier and a young Kirk Hooker, and I'm sure there's a lot all rolled into one, which, you know, it can be pretty deadly for the competition. Yeah. This car here is Toledo Speedway. Yeah, I raced there for 1 year in the sportsman division. Russ Wood talked me into going down there, and that was a great deal.
So we're going to kind of jump around here from some old stuff, some new stuff, but we've got so much information that we want to go over, and so I hope you don't all get lost in this because Kirk has a lot to say. So we found out, you know, what he does for a living, kind of where he got started. So I'll turn it back over to you, Craig. Is there something you'd like to ask him?
Yeah, I'd like to get to know you a little bit more. Tell us about home life. Are you married? Well, obviously you have kids, but tell us about your kids and what you like to do away from racing.
I married. Been married for over 30 years with my lovely wife Diane. Big supporter of racing. And never divorced. She stuck beside me all this through thick and thin. She's my best friend. My son Jake is engaged to Mel, which is Rob's daughter. My daughter Taylor May is married to Cameron Gagne. They're doing good in life. Yeah, I got a good family. You know, I talked to my brother Randy a lot. So we had a family business for like 65 years at the golf course, and it got sold. And just a different world without a golf course involved with.
Yeah, for sure. And what about pets? You got pets at home here?
Yeah, we got pets, you know. We got a little dog named Lola, and we got a rabbit named Bob.
Nice, nice.
I know you were going with Bob.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Bob.
yeah, Bob. So, it's
what kind of stuff do you like to do away from racing when you're not working on cars or whatever?
you know what? I don't really have any side hobbies. I'm not a golfer. I enjoy working on race cars. I enjoy talking to people. I enjoy sitting on my back porch and a whiskey and a beer. And you know, I believe a lot of things you got to look instead of looking in the rearview mirror, you got to look forward. You know, so Jake and I own a tree stumping service, and that keeps us pretty busy on this side too.
Excellent. Go ahead, Rob.
That just brings me to something else I jotted down here. A lot of what Kirk supports a lot of the racing effort, although there's sponsors and whatnot. But he works really hard, not only in what he does for a living, but he sets up a lot of cars for guys. He has a spring smasher here. He's got a shock dyno. He does a lot of things for a lot of the other drivers that a lot of you may not know. And just the setup part of it. I remember Mel drug me here kicking and screaming to have Kirk set my car up so that I would be faster. And between him and Matt Wathier, they set that car up so it was a dream to drive. I had 2 really good seasons myself because of Kirk and Matt. But that being said, Kirk also had a line painting business which he sold that they worked on. Kirk does a lot of, he buys and sells a lot of race cars and whatnot. And that's basically how he helps Jake along. His sponsors are good, but Kirk does a lot of this on his own and does very well at it. So Kirk, I know there's a few things you want me to ask you about, and I know there's some good stories behind this. We all know that Jake drives an asphalt car at Delaware. So why did you buy the asphalt car? Like, he had a pretty good program going here on the dirt with Brad and with the Thunderstock and late model, but why the asphalt car?
Well, the thing is, and don't take me wrong when I say to you, like, Jake and I could go to the races and win races. And the reason I say that is because a guy like Brian Ruhlman. I looked over one night and I seen Brian Ruhlman show up to Buxton. There was him and Veronica, and next thing you know it, they're winning races. She's running around and he's sitting there petting his dog.
Yeah.
True story, right?
Yeah.
Well, if you go to an asphalt track, you can't go by yourself. You need a team. Well, now my wife's spotting, my daughter's corner spotting, Cam's corner spotting. You know, I'm doing tires. Kyle's taking care of things. You need a team. Like, Brad Othby's got a good team going. He's got good, everything's jiving there. Like, you know what I mean? And I just felt we need to get Jake, you know, some more recognition other than on the dirt. So let's be honest here. We took him to Delaware and he's running very well. We haven't won, but, you know, yeah. I'm sure it's going to come. Well, now all of a sudden he's getting a call from a Pinty's car to go test for Ken Schrader. Like, how many people around here can say that? Yeah. I can never say that.
Yeah.
You know, and I did a lot in my life in racing, but I never ever got a chance to drive a CAS car, NASCAR, Pinty's car. And here this boy's 22, and he's already getting stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, Taylor May played volleyball. She played for the Ballhawks in Chatham. And her coach said to me one day, the more Taylor May can touch that ball, the better off that player is going to be. Well, Jake's spinning. I think somebody told me last week he's spinning like 200 laps. Like, you know, we tested down there at Pinty's. We're doing 30 laps, 35 laps at Delaware. We're hot lapping. We're doing that. We're going to Buxton. He's running 2 features. Like, the more you touch the steering wheel, the better you're going to be. And I always relate back to that volleyball coach. The more that kid touches that volleyball, the better that kid's going to be. Well, the more that kid grips on that steering wheel, the better they're going to be. like even like tonight, he's out testing. He doesn't need to go out there because it's the same racetrack. But he's out at Buxton with 2 cars testing tonight, or Southern Ontario Motor Speedway, sorry.
Yeah, and those are all good points, and you can just see. And I'll throw this out here, and I've said it many times. When I go to Delaware, Jake is a show. He's down there, and as Kirk says, it's a family thing. They're all in there working. The whole family is doing this, and look where it's taken Jake. Who knows? The sky's the limit. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people may not agree with me and frown upon what I'm going to say, but Jake is the show. At 22 years old, whether he's in a Thunderstock or a late model, or in the pro late model at Delaware, he's the show. A lot of people are gonna buy tickets to sit in the grandstands and become Jake Hooker fans. So, by the way, if you want any swag, we'll talk about that later. I'm sure Jake's got all kinds of stuff for sale. Okay, go ahead, Craig.
Actually, you were talking about the asphalt a little bit, and I just wanted to go back that for a minute because you started racing on the dirt, right? And then you went to asphalt. What's that learning curve like when you go up to asphalt? How long does it actually take to get comfortable to where you feel like you can kind of hammer down and get around the track?
Well, with me, because Eugene instilled to me a long time ago, the straighter you keep your race car, the faster you're going to be. As soon as you slide a race car, you lose speed. Like, people think it's cool them sliding, but the straighter you can run a race car off the corner, the faster you're going to be, right? So, and then we raced at the Ridge, and it basically was asphalt because, Rob Young come down and kicked everybody's ass a couple of times.
Well, I was a lot younger.
Yeah. But you know what I'm saying? But I've always tried to keep a race car straight. Like, I've never been a guy to pitch a car. Like, that's just my own theory. It took a couple nights, like going to the All-Star Series, but they were on a recap tires, so they were hard. There wasn't a lot of grip, so that was like right up my alley.
Okay, go ahead, Rob.
So speaking of the Ridge, for those of you that didn't know, a lot of guys that raced at Buxton also raced at the Ridge Raceway, which when Kirk ran there in '86 and '87, he ran in an Econo car. I don't know if Angel has any pictures, but when we get to him, it's okay. Don't worry about it. So he won eight out of 10 features in the points championship between '86 and '87. So Kirk, tell us a little bit about that. That would have kind of been, you kind of got started. You also told me that Diane, your wife, drove the car at Buxton, and you drove it at the Ridge.
Yeah, Diane actually bought a car. She was supposed to drive the Powder Puff, and the guy canceled on her, and she was so mad the next day she bought a car off Jim Harregger's, which is Marshall's dad. Yeah. And that's how Diane started racing, and we were just running Buxton. And then how'd that work out? I ended up letting me taking it out to the Ridge, and we did good there too. She did good. Her big claim to fame is she won the Pepsi 25, I forget, but it was a big race for her, and that was cool. So we just did that.
Yeah, so you can see where not only is it Jake gets his talent from his dad, but he gets it from his mom too. And I can tell you how competitive this family is, and it only, I mean, you can see that it's all brought. Jake has gotten all that from his mom and dad. There's been a lot of people that have helped you out along the way. You mentioned your brother Randy. I saw Randy at Delaware and again at Psalms, and he's still in the grandstands. He's still cheering for Jake. But he and his wife Debbie, along with Mike McCall, Dennis Thibodeau. I'm going to mention a few more names here, so you can. Brett Buchanan, which you guys know as Mud, Jamie Parker, and Gary Vise. These were all people that Kirk. That helped Kirk through a lot of his racing, whether it was asphalt and dirt. But tell us a little bit about that and the support that you had from your family and whatnot.
Well, Brett, like Mud, right, I consider him my stepson.
Yep.
He was with me since he knocked on our door when he was 12 years old, and he told me he was going to be my best friend, and he's basically my stepson, right?
Yep.
And we done a lot of racing with him, and a lot of my wins are because of Brett Buchanan's hard dedication out there in the middle of the night working on the car, but that was Gary Leach built a lot of good motors. He was working for Dennis Thibodeau, and I feel Gary Leach, and everybody knows Gary Leach. A lot of his name got out there because of Kirk Hooker, because nobody ever heard of Gary Leach before. They heard of AP or Dennis Thibodeau, and then that compelled him to get on his own, and look at where Gary is now, right? But now we're back with Dennis Thibodeau of AP. Like, I can't say enough for Dennis for everything he does for me. Jamie Parker, just a friend of mine that's helped me for years. Gary Vise, he still comes around. He's got my back. I got his back. His kid's racing. We sponsor Lucas, his grandson's go-karts. There's all sorts of guys. Like, the list is like my two nephews, Wesley and Jonathan. Like pictures like this, Shacky. There's Drew Smith in the picture. Kyle Forbes.
Yeah, I saw that. I didn't realize that Drew had helped you.
Yeah, that's the last asphalt car I ever drove. That was in New Smyrna, and I come home and I was like, yeah, I'm done.
Well, there's a story that Kirk told me about New Smyrna, and I don't know if it's this car, but he got upside down and he's sliding down the front or back straightaway. And tell us about that, because all you thought about was Taylor May back home.
Yeah.
So go through that. Tell us what happened.
We got wrecked in New Smyrna. I ended up on my lid, and I was sliding down the back stretch on my lid, looking at nose pieces going by my head at like probably 80, 90 mile an hour. And all I could think about was my little kid at home. And if something happened to me, you know what I mean? Yeah. That's when I realized, this is pretty crazy what I'm doing now.
Well, this is top notch. Like Kirk raced in the All-Star Series, as we kind of alluded about earlier, all across Ontario. I think that he was telling me there isn't too many tracks he hasn't raced at or won at. But always, wherever Kirk went, he was the guy to talk about. Another story that I want to share with you, this happened at Barrie Speedway, and Kirk said something about how he had a bad night at Barrie, and he just did not like Barrie Speedway at all. And this got out there on one of the rock stations, and they all started to hate Kirk Hooker. Because Kirk will explain it, he didn't care whether it was a strawberry, a raspberry, berry, or if your name was Barry, he didn't want to have anything to do with you. Tell us about that, Kirk.
So we went to Barrie Speedway. I think it was 2004 or 2005, and we got wrecked. And a guy come up with a microphone, and he asked me, he says, so what do you think of Barrie Speedway, the new configuration? I said to the guy, right now, I hate Barrie Speedway, I hate the town Barrie, and I hate anything named Barrie. And never thought nothing about it. I just let it go, you know what I mean? I loaded up my stuff and did our 5-hour drive home. Well, my friend from up that way, his name's Chris Wheel, calls me up and goes, man, you got yourself into a big storm up here, a little bit of a hornet's nest. I was like, what are you talking about? He goes, that radio station got a hold of that interview, and they were promoting the All-Star Series, how this Kirk Hooker said all his bad things about Barrie. So we get back there, I think we went back 4 or 5 weeks later, and I'm telling you, there was little kids running up, shooting me the finger, and I was like, what the hell, man? And then these adults are booing me and throwing beer cans at me. I'm like, something. Well, Chris ends up telling me, or we'll end up telling me, yeah, they've been playing this over and over and over. And they packed the place because they wanted to meet Kirk Hooker, who said these bad things. So I ended up winning that night. And I just said, you know what? I said some bad things. I'm very sorry, but I love Barrie. And anybody want to come and have a beer and meet the Kirk Hooker, come on back to my trailer. And it's kind of a funny story because you know who was the owner of Barrie Speedway is Brad Moran, which is the top of NASCAR. And I think he was part of them promoting that, me hating Barrie. So it was a good deal. So.
Yep, all good stories. Anything you wanted to?
No, go ahead. You're doing great. I'm loving the stories.
I figured you probably. So now I want to, and again, I don't want to run out of time, but there's a lot of things I need to get Kirk to tell you about. One of these stories was about Kyle Busch and how Taylor May got a picture with Kyle.
Yeah.
This was at Delaware?
Yeah, they had the NASCAR stars there, and raced Kyle that night, and we were like on the front stretch, and they were doing driver interview, and we were all meeting the fans. And I walked up to Kyle Busch, and I said, "Hey, my name's Kirk Hooker. You know, I'm a bit of a fan of yours, and blah blah blah." And then I said, "Hey, man, why do you drive a Bloomquist car? Because that's when the Prelude to the Dream was going on." I said, "Over a Rocket." And he goes, "Well, I just like the characteristics of the front end, the way Scott's got us going, and Scott was on his A game back then, right?" I said, I said, "The guy that does Bloomquist shocks does my shocks on my Durley model." And he looked at me and he called me out. He goes, "Yeah," and he looked me straight in the eye, and Jake was standing right beside me. He goes, "Oh yeah, who's that?" And I said, "Jason Young from Huntersville, North Carolina," and I give him the phone number. I'm telling you, Kyle Busch jumped up about 150 feet, spun around, planted his feet in the ground, put his hand up, put his shoulder into me, and says, "What the hell are you doing at Delaware?" So my boy says to him, "I'm not a real big fan of you, but my sister loves you." And that Kyle Busch grabbed Jake's hand and walked and found Taylor, and they got a picture together. And James McDonald was there that night.
Oh, yeah.
Followed us around that night. Yeah. Oh, that was a bad night. That was a John Vanderlyn wreck right there. Yeah, you don't pass high there, I guess.
So yeah, we probably got a few more. You want to talk about? Okay, so this might be. We'll go back to this in a minute, but in '91 there was the Can-Am Dirt Challenge series, right? And there was 5 tracks. Can-Am, which is in New York, Brighton, Ridge, Rockville, and Buxton, and you won that, didn't you?
Yeah, yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that.
That was there was myself, Skin Riddle, Gary Riddle,
Yeah.
Rob Webster, Brian Krill, and we traveled up and down the highway, and we won the dirt. Dan Smolders was involved, and we won that Dirt Series Points Championship. Yeah.
And a lot of you people probably have probably seen Skin and Kirk's cube van. And there's a picture on the internet. I know not everybody, but it's cool. He's got his hands out like this, typical Skin fashion. So did he drive that thing?
He drove that thing, and it was an old 1990 Ford cube van with a Chevrolet motor in it. Yeah, we had a lot of fun.
That's cool.
Yeah.
All right, so tell us about this picture.
That was just a bad night at Buxton, I guess. No, we ended up on our lid there, and that was that actually was one of Eugene Hookster's old cars that we bought off him, and I don't know what year that was, honestly. I couldn't tell you. 92, that era, but yep.
That's pretty neat. So as I said before, we're sitting in Kirk's shop here, and this is where now he does all the fabricating and whatnot builds a lot of bodies, as most of you know. And there's a couple hundred pictures up here, and I wish we could show you all of these pictures, and again, how many checker flags he had. Kirk probably has no idea how many dirt and asphalt wins that he has, but the fact that he can cross over like that, that takes a lot of talent, and we can see that Jake has that same talent passed on from you. Whatever he drives, it's he's either gonna win the thing or he's gonna finish in the top 5. And I wish I could show you also he's got another shop just finished up that they're having a wedding in this weekend, but nothing but racing here, I'll tell you. If you ever get a chance to visit Kirk, come and have a look at this, because these pictures will keep you entertained for at least an hour anyway. So other than that, Kirk, is there? I'm trying to make sure I covered everything here. Is there anything you'd like to add? I don't know, as far as championships are concerned, we talked about just about everything. And again, Craig, have you got anything you'd like to add?
No, I'm pretty good. I'm just liking all the stories. I kind of like to know what would be, I guess, either your dream track or the favorite track that you've actually raced at, either asphalt or dirt, or one or the other.
I really enjoyed Peterborough Speedway. That was probably because it was cut and I won I think 5 features there. That was an endurance race. That's when we could afford a big fancy sign company like Dean sponsoring us back in the day. But yeah,
We all been there.
yeah, that was kind of cool. That's at the Ridge. Honestly, Peterborough was to go-to place to win. Like
Yeah.
I had good success at Flamborough, and I had Sauble was always good to me. Kawartha was always good, but that one racetrack to me was JP. Always treated us well. Autumn Colors was a big party and a big race, and you know we put a feather in our cap and say we won that. But yeah.
Awesome. Is there any tracks that you didn't get to that you wanted to and just never had the opportunity?
I tested at Cayuga once, or Jacasa. It was the old Jacasa, and I never got to race there, but I would have really enjoyed to race at Cayuga. Brockville, I raced at Brockville, did good there. We raced at Cornwall. That was a fun racetrack. That was a really cool racetrack. High bank, you know. That was through Deb Brush's Great Lakes Late Model Series. That was probably the furthest away from my house in Ontario that I've been. Like, yeah. And then where else? There's been a lot of good racetracks I've seen. Like even with go-karting, like I always remember one night I parked beside Ken Schrader one night at Toledo, and I said to Schrader, I said, "What's your favorite track?" And he goes, "This one, because that's where I'm at tonight." And he said, "You know what?" He goes, "I'm going to tell you something. They're all circles in people's backyards, and all you got to do is figure out how to get around them, and you'll do good."
Yeah, I remember Kirk said that to me a couple of years ago. And that's pretty cool. When he mentions Peterborough, so just the other day we were having an interview with Kevin Trevelyan, and he said that Peterborough was the track he hated to go to the most. So here's a guy who hadn't won in 30 years, and his first major win happened to be at Peterborough. So that's pretty cool. It's pretty. You're the place you love to go to.
Yeah.
So it's
That
not
was a
the same-
long way away. It was 5 hours, so.
Yeah, not the same for everybody. But I've followed Kirk and Jake to Eldora, to Attica, and to Oakshade, Silver Bullet, back before we had our pandemic. And the things that I learned and the stories that Kirk could tell, and the fun that we had. Again, I don't want to take anything away from Kirk, but there was some moments that we could have a whole show about the funny things that happened. But
Denny's?
yeah, I didn't want to go there, but yeah, but that was a Denny's thing.
Oh, yeah.
And we remember and Jake, because it rained out at Eldora, and forget what the race was. It was a big one because Jeep Van Warmer ended up winning it. But Jake went back, and a lot of the big names had to go somewhere else that night, didn't it?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Jake made the show, and he got to run at Eldora.
Yeah.
Oh, that was so cool. We could tell you lots of stories. So, I think we're gonna kind of wrap we want to talk about this car.
Oh,
Okay.
that car there. That was my first New Smyrna experience, and that car was owned by the Tim Hortons boys, Guy and Scott Pritchard. And I still talk to Scott and Guy, and Andrew Pritchard's a big supporter of ours. And that was the first time Russ Wood got me that ride down there in New Smyrna. Yeah, that's 1997.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, there's like we always ask at this part of the show, and Craig probably is going to ask you about in your career. You talked about some of the sponsors, but would you like to say at this point now, after 40 years of racing, would you like to thank some of those sponsors that helped you along?
Oh, all the people that's helped me. But before I thank, this picture here is one of my favorite pictures. That was my first win at Delaware, and a fan gave me that. And to me, it's right over that door when you walk in here. A fan gave me that. My brother Randy, my sister-in-law, little Joe, Carrie, and Shelby, all of them are in there. All the people that meant something to me, my son, the boy on the end there, Taylor May's in there. But yeah, that to me is probably one of the most favorite pictures of racing. And the next picture is coming up here.
If we can get it over there. Before that picture comes over, you guys can't see this probably, but of course it's got the whole family's there. But it says his first feature win on the asphalt.
No,
Really?
that was just not on that. That was at Delaware.
Oh, okay.
Not because
Okay,
I won.
sorry.
I just never won at Delaware. And to sit in victory lane at Delaware were Junior Hanley, Don Biederman,
Oh, yeah.
Tracy Leslie.
Yeah.
I can go on with icons to sit there and watch them guys win. Like Alan Kwiecki raced there, Kenny Wallet. Like these guys won in Delaware, and here I am in the same victory lane with them. That to me meant something. Now this guy here, that's Don Hendricks. You know, he lost his battle to cancer, and this guy to me was the icon of South Buxton Raceway. Him and Bill Walters, and like Bill Pafota is a good friend of mine, but like this guy here, like he had a trademark at what happened that going into 3 and 4 how to do the ultimate slingshot. So, no.
Yeah, well, I remember when I first went to Buxton in '81. You know, Don was he was the guy to watch. And I mean,
now this here, this is when I was getting out of racing, and I basically give Andrew the car and said, Andrew, you know what, you drive it, you take care of it, you do whatever you got to do. And he won the shootout that night, which was pretty cool. And then we come back and we won the Gord Dewell Memorial. And like Gord Dewell was a good friend of mine, and Andrew gave me that trophy that night, and that meant something to me. Yeah.
Kirk, how did you know that it was time to shut it down? Was there a sign or something that happened?
It just, you know what, we were winning. Like the thing is, we were winning races when I got out. Like I wasn't at the back, I wasn't a field filler or whatever. Like, and I hate to use that word, but I just knew it was time. Now this picture here is iconic. That's Brett Rivalries, which was a good friend of mine, and that's me on the high side there. And this is probably one of the coolest pictures in the shop. It sits right over there. Like a lot of, like these guys were my heroes. And you know what, I was one of Brett. I talked to Brett before he passed. He went to Brighton with Andrew, and he asked me to go with him, and I didn't go that night. And on the Monday he passed, and he actually took Jake with him. Him and Brett Bonner went down that night, and that literally tore Jake apart when Brett passed away.
yeah. Yeah. Well, and there's another picture coming up here that I know we didn't get to, and it's a picture of championship night, and there's Chris Ross, was Chris Ross, was it Gord Dewell in that picture as well?
No, it was Chris Ross and Andrew Rivalries.
That's right, yeah. And you were on the bottom.
Yeah.
And you ended up winning that race,
Yeah.
but the story you told me was that.
There it is there.
Yeah.
So this picture here is the championship night at Buxton, and that's Chris Ross, Andrew Rivalries, Big Andrew signature, and that was their championship night. And they didn't want me to race that night because you had to have 5 nights in. And them 2 kids, and they were kids back then, said, we want to beat Kirk Hooker on the track, not in the trailer. And I ended up beating them that night, but I knew right there, those 2 kids were diehard racers and they had their shit together. And that's what Andrew said to me, I'd rather beat you on the racetrack than you sitting in the box. So, yeah, and Chris Ross, but the rest of them voted against it. And so those were your point leaders, and they let me race that night and ended up winning the feature. That was probably, like, to me, that was pretty iconic.
So, I think that's probably Craig, do you want to close this out? Is there anything, usually at the end of the show, there's some questions you have, and I know we talked to Kirk about his sponsors back, I know he's not racing now, but, and then some of the swag, most of the stuff will be from Jake. So if you guys have any, there's any of you that would like shirts, Jake Hooker racing shirts or hats or whatever, Kirk's the guy to talk to, along with Jake or Mel. I'm sure Diane and Taylor and Cam can also help out there too. But we really have enjoyed coming to Kirk's shop and just letting him tell some of those stories. And we could probably go on 2 or 3 more shows listening to Kirk's stories. But I'm sure that if there's anybody out there that wants to hear a few more of them, get a hold of Kirk and he'll tell you. There's some really good ones that maybe we can't tell on a video here.
We'll talk about it.
Yeah.
I remember one night, Rob, me and Brad Othnier, we hated each other so bad. We were coming home from the races, and we both had Q vans, and we were smashing fenders coming home. That was right down Pioneer Line.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm sure one of these days we're gonna get a hold of Brad.
Yeah.
Because he's got some stories.
Yeah.
And there's some Russ Wood and Brad Authy stories I'd like to hear again. So with that, I think we're gonna close out. On behalf of Kirk Hooker and myself, Rob Young, and Craig Smolders, thanks for joining us and talking with Kirk. And I hope you all have a great evening.
I really appreciate you guys having me on your show, guys.
Thank you very much for joining us, Kirk. It's been
Pleasure's
a lot of
ours,
fun.
Kirk.
Thanks. Cheers.